And we are live. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home of the apocalypse. Episode 41, The Crazies. I am your host, Jared, the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace, and co-host Adam Bomb Glancy, coming to you live. And we were good.
Or whenever you see it. You know, we'll take a week later.
It'll take a week, exactly. But we're back on schedule, you know, after the move apocalypse, so we're back on our every 2-week schedule, because I said we had shit lined up this time. We talked about it, so we're good to go for at least a couple more episodes until we start to flounder again. But
I have things I will be asking you about at the end of the show. More things to put on the schedule.
Ah, you got more stuff. Good. That's what we like.
Suggestions.
Excellent. That's what we need. Not that we ever run out of ideas, but you know, I tend to like...
Oh, yes you do. You sit around and go, Glancy, I'm dry. I've got nothing. Oh, wait, I got an idea.
I got nothing. The well is empty, Scott. Oh, wait, I got something for you.
Yeah, how many times I had to put up with that from you? Where it's just like, it's over. It's all over. Okay, wait a minute. There's one more thing.
Yeah. You couldn't count it on both your hands.
Nope, not even if I was a mutant and grew an extra hand.
Yes, exactly. Even if you were an Orlean and had 4 arms, you still couldn't do it. You know. Hey, but
Omars are stupid.
The Omars indeed are stupid. So again, we're going to talk about the Crazies, the original 1973 George Romero film and the remake in 2010. Now, why are we talking about the Crazies? Well, because I posted the event page, I think the Crazies covers 2 types of apocalypses that we talked about. Number 1, the micro-apocalypse, and number 2, it's viral as well. So it kind of covers those 2 areas for sure.
And definitely, possibly, I've been pushing Jared on the 3rd style of apocalypse, which is the behavioral apocalypse.
Yes, and
where people's behavior changes.
Yes, for whatever reasons, he brought up a good point, which we'll tag it on at the end. But before we start, let's talk about a couple of in-the-news things. And I forgot to mention last week, I had been watching, and of course now I'm a couple behind because I started to lose interest, there is a show on, I think it's TNT, called The Last Man on Earth. It's a post-apocalyptic show, but it's really more of a comedy. You know, but it's like, okay, well, it's got a post-apocalyptic theme. I'll give it a chance and see if it's funny. It's really not that funny. I'm not. The Last Man on Earth. He's so hilarious. I'm not really getting a whole lot of that out of it. I'm just not feeling it. I watched like the first 4 or 5 episodes, and we were away, so I missed one, and then I missed another, and then it wasn't available on download, on demand. So I'm kind of behind. I'll catch up with it, but it's again, I don't find it that funny, but somebody else might think it's hilarious because, as we've all learned in time, that Jared's really fucking picky. So.
Oh yeah. You know, it reminded me a little bit of a film I remember from the 90s. I think it was that Jerry Ryan was in. Like, the only thing about the show, the movie that stood out was that Jerry Ryan from, that is to say, the girl who played the Borg, I think it was, on Star Trek.
Oh yeah, seven of 9.
7 of 9. Yes. That apparently there was a cat apocalypse. Oh, the cat bunghole apocalypse. Everyone gonna good. Oh fuck! Okay. So, as I was saying, I have a new co-host. This is Django, our 20-pound, furry tour, with apparently thinks that he can just climb on me, which he clearly is succeeding at. Anyways, this is going to be a problem throughout our podcasting until I can move him downstairs with the rest of the cats because, oh, Jesus. He's new. Anyways, Jerry Ryan in 2000, I just looked it up on IMDb, there was a film called The Last Man, which was a comedy about some guy who's, and of course they got Jerry Ryan, on the cover of the box.
Oh,
but
well, of course.
the basic David is, I think it's some guy named David Arnott, who plays this this guy who is the last guy on Earth, and he's just a fat, tubby, bearded, guy who would be a fan of perhaps Star Trek Voyager, and he's one of us. And the last woman is Jerry Ryan, and it's like, woohoo, result, and then they find another guy, and he's pretty much the male version of he's the male version of Jerry Ryan, and it all starts, and suddenly we have World War IV. But I haven't seen it. I just remember seeing the previews for it some years ago. I'm sure we can find a link to the IMDb page or whatever and throw that up. But
yeah, I've never
The Last Man as a comedy has been done before. It has been treated as a comedy in the past. Whoa. So there. Oh.
So yes, I've been watching that. What else? There is also there's a channel called Crackle, and there is I think we mentioned it before, a Dead Rising Watchtower. Basically, they made a short movie about the video game Dead Rising, and it's in that universe. I've watched about half of it. Then I lost interest and started shooting people online instead. So
far more compelling.
More compelling. It takes place after both the video games. Frank West there's another outbreak and the Zombrex and all that stuff. That cat will not leave you alone.
No. Jesus.
He's purring like a fiend.
Can you hear him?
I heard him. No, I can't.
Okay, that's because he had his mouth next to the speaker.
So, Dead Rising Watchtower, I'll probably finish it off. It's on the Crackle Network. And then also, what else was there? Walking Dead wrapped up the season. So,
no spoilers, please.
No, they wrapped up.
The man without cable needs you to wait until he can see it.
They wrapped up the season, but then they announced that in the summer there is going to be a shoot-off series called Fear the Walking Dead, which takes place in California but a few weeks before the apocalypse, so we get to see the breakdown and from a different area.
Yeah, your favorite part.
My favorite part, yes. So I'll definitely give it a chance because it's during the breakdown, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if same guys, but like I said, I think the zombie thing is kind of saturated the market, so we'll see. Can they support another show, even though it's good show? It's like, do we need 2 Walking Dead TV shows out there?
Yeah.
I'm sure some people are like, yes, we do, but we'll see.
Well, we need another one if there's more, zombie rampaging and less, drama. Well, we'd like to send more zombies.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen. It's because it's really because we know it's really about the characters, and the zombie scenario is just the backdrop. So
it's window dressing.
So
much like the King in Yellow in a certain show we could name, but we won't in case anyone hasn't managed to see it yet.
Yes. Now, so there's that, and there's been.
I got 2.
Okay. Well, one more thing. Yeah,
okay.
There's been a slew of more Mad Max trailers coming out. Everybody's getting all fucking crazy, and again, I'm trying to hold back my judgment until I see it, but I'm having trouble doing it because especially when people are like, "Oh, I'll wait for this reboot/remake." And they're like, "It's not a reboot. It's the 4th film." No, it's not. It doesn't take place after Beyond Thunderdome. It is it's not a prequel. It's like I think they call it like an interquel.
They're inserting it between Road Warrior and Thunderdome.
They're basically no. I think that's actually between Mad Max and the Road Warrior, and I think it kind of replaces the Road Warrior because he still has the V8, and the V8 gets wrecked again. So it's kind of like
you're right. We all see the V8 Interceptor die.
Yep.
Trailer, which I'd like to point out, if you're going to make me cry, why don't you wait till the fucking movie to start to make me cry again? It's like, oh, the V8 interceptor dies. I've lost interest.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, I think it's like it's kind of, it's a, people are like, oh, it's another story. It's a different. No, it's basically. It seems like Mad Max still happened, but he's kind of like they're doing with the Terminator, Genesis. It's like, well, the first one happened, but it didn't happen, and we're kind of
they're folding in on their own timeline in Terminator,
which
to insert the movie into the movie.
Yeah,
I mean that's really what's happening. They're putting the movie in the middle of the movie. You know.
Yeah, because basically it's like
it's like a turducken. It's like a Terminator turducken.
Well, because it's like, apparently, if they're doing that, then time is definitely linear in their universe because, well, we went back and we changed that, but then went back and changed things again, and changed things again, and it got all, we got all, it gets to be too much. So the Mad Max thing, again, people say it's not a reboot. It's not a reboot of the whole franchise, but it kind of is. It's kind of like what Abrams is doing, and everybody's like, oh, but it's the same guy, this and that, yeah. But he's retelling the story for a modern audience with lots of CGI and Michael Bay explosions. So,
I will admit that they did a smart thing, and the most recent trailers I've watched, they have cut down the CGI to almost nothing.
Oh yeah, they had to.
Or they because I think the old school people from the 80s were grumping already and spreading their, bile like we do across the internet, pooping it because what we saw was a CGI lizard and a CGI dust devils and CGI cars being sucked up into CGI explosions, and everybody got grumpy. And or at least a percentage of the original fan base did, and that can poison the well. And I think they're backing off that. If there is CGI, fine, but I understand that some effects are going to have to be done with CGI.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I think they decided we better not showcase the CGI. We better make this look as much as possible like it's an actual car flying through the actual air, blowing out its actual shocks when it lands in the chase, And then you put a new car in with new shocks for the next scene, where they're actually got metal flying through the air at 60, 70 miles an hour, because that's what we came for.
Exactly, and also their it's in 3D, so that is why everything is so over the top with CGI.
They have 3D.
Well, they have a 3D and a 2D version.
Good. Well, I'm going to the 2D because every time I wear those glasses, it washes the color out, and that film looks good and colorful.
Oh yeah. No. Anytime something's in 2D and 3D, I go see the 2D because 3D, I'm sorry, is not necessary to enhance my experience. Just make a good.
It decreases
film.
it.
Yeah, just make a good film.
Yeah, the 3D decreases my enjoyment because I think the glasses always wash the color out, and it's not as bright and it's not as vivid, and I can't have that. If I'm going to see something, big and shiny, it better be goddamn big and shiny.
Oh yeah, and of course, I always fall back to anytime I think about 3D movies, all I can ever think about is Dr. Tongue's 3D House of Pancakes.
Oh, followed up also by Dr. Tongue's 3D House of Cats, and luckily we have the cat prop right here, so that John Kennedy go, would you care for a feline? Thank you, you awesome assistant there. Finally, the cat came in useful for something. Oh, my God.
Yes, it's earned its keep for today.
I didn't have any pancakes ready. Sorry.
That's okay. So that's all I had. That's all I have from apocalyptic news. A whole bunch of stuff I've been kind of saving up because I keep on forgetting about it. So you say a couple things as well?
Yeah, I was going to mention the new trailers are for Mad Max are pushing the CGI down. They're pushing that back into the hole, which I think is a good thing. I was also going to say that we don't have to see Tom Hardy looking so butthurt. The first trailer shows Tom Hardy as a perpetual victim.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
And I'm like, and he looks sad and broken the whole time, and mostly, but his sad and broken wasn't coming off very sad and broken. It was coming off, and the lower lip pouty face thing was not blowing my skirt up. I did not need that. I get that Max is broken, and I got to tell you, the drunken, misogynistic anti-Semite Mr. Gibson gave us plenty of broken without having to go pouty face, because
exactly
he was a guy who ate every fucking emotion because he couldn't show any weakness, and so that was fine. That was what we had for our character.
And that's what I don't like about it, when they show him too broken. It's like Max Rockatansky. No,
is as hard as a coffin nail. Okay.
Exactly. I'm sorry.
That's who Mac Rockatansky is. Thank you very much. He was handcuffing guys to things that were on fire 2 decades before Rorschach got around to it with in The Watchmen. Thank you very much. Here's your hacksaw. Same gag, different continent, different decade. But the other thing I want to point out is that is Maggie. Okay, the new Arnold Schwarzenegger zombie flick.
Oh yes, now, you posted that.
I want to point that one out because Maggie is a first-time director, first-time writer. The budget is $8 million, and the 2 stars are frickin' Schwarzenegger. The Governor must have taken a serious pay cut to do this. He must have. I haven't checked to see if he's got a. In fact, I probably should and just go ahead and see if he's got an executive producer credit on this thing, because it looks like the kind of thing that he's like, I need to have a career again. Let's go get something, high end, to something that'll really give me an opportunity here. And so it's him, and it's Abigail Breslin, who I hope people will remember from things like Zombieland, right? She was the younger sister in Zombieland.
Okay.
And she was Little Miss Sunshine. And I know that she's picked up she's picked up a lot of accolades as a really good actress. And everything I've seen her in has been, top notch. So it's a zombie apocalypse where we apparently have won. Where there is still order, there is still authority, there's scary guys with guns enforcing the rules, and the rule is, when your relatives get the bug, they go to quarantine. And quarantine probably means execution and, cremation, And, it's all about, it looks like it's going to be about the guy who doesn't want to send his daughter to the zombie death camp, and what that's going to cost him for, not doing that. And it's definitely a crap sack future where everything's bashed up. America looks like Libya. Cars are still running, hospitals are still up, the military and the police are still there, but huge swaths of the urban environment are depopulated by the plague, by the zombies. The world looks pretty crappy, and so it's technically post-apocalypse. We've had our apocalypse, and now we're recovering from it. And the zombies are just, this underlying factor that's now part of everybody's everyday life. Now that, in the words of Mr. Romero, death has died.
Nobody dies anymore. So it's people fear death because if somebody dies, the whole thing could start all over again.
Yeah. So that's where Maggie's going. And again, I don't know if I said it before, budget $8 million. That's the estimated budget on IMDb. And I got to tell you, anytime somebody comes up with a single-digit million movie or lower, I got to give them a shot. I got to give them a try.
See what they can pull off. Because that means they have ideas and concepts.
Oh, and speaking of not post-apocalypse, one of the best films ever is for any horror fans, is a film called The Sunderland Experiment. But because I saw it at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, it has now got a release onto DVD. You can order it through Netflix, I believe. It's not on Netflix instant streaming download yet, but they changed the title. They changed it to Exile, Children of the Wasteland, and then they got a big fucking radiation warning symbol right in the middle of the title to try and make you think that it's a post-apocalyptic movie. It's not. There's nothing post-apocalyptic about this movie. It is a horror movie about a cult living in an isolated part of the California desert, cut off from the modern world, which is still going on. And it looks a little post-apocalyptic inside their world, because they've been cut off for so long. It's a movie you should see. Everybody should see Exile. Okay, it's a great movie. But the people who bought it and decided to distribute it, they wanted to change the title because, amongst other things, E is closer to the front of the alphabet than T or S for the Sunderland. Can you believe that bullshit? So, personally, I would have gone with Experiment and at least kept the word E and the X, and but they didn't get to put in this Children of the Wasteland thing, which it's bad marketing for a great movie. And if you're fooled into watching it thinking it's post-apocalypse, worse things could happen to you. All right, but I don't want you to have any kind of dislike for it because it didn't meet your expectations, because your expectations were for something else. But seriously, we should have a link to Exile in the show notes because it is awesome, and the people marketing it and it's not the creators, it's the money people behind the distribution. But it's a really good movie. So there's my pitch on Exile.
Cool. To check it out. So let's circle back to the topic at hand.
Yes.
But no, there's a lot of news. We haven't really had a lot of news lately, so we had a lot of stuff to share, which is good. The Crazies, originally George Romero, 1973, and I think that was another small budget film.
Oh yeah.
I think that was originally like, oh god, I'm trying to remember.
I'll go ahead and look that up on the thousands.
Yeah, it was pretty small if I remember correctly. That's not what I was looking for.
But he went to this town in Pennsylvania, as I understand it, and just said, "Hey, does everybody want to be in a movie?" And okay, budget is $275,000 on this thing.
Yeah, and it was $70s, and it was actually a failure. Box office was only $143,000, so it didn't do so well. But it became again one of those cult films. Basically, what the Crazies is about is you get the small town, and actually the small town in the original is called. I just watched it again, and I can't frickin' remember the name of the town. Evans City, Pennsylvania, which comes up again in Dawn of the Dead. Because it's like, we just passed Evansville. Those rednecks in Evansville must be having a great time. So again, Romero likes to stay local to Pennsylvania when he makes his film. So you'll see a lot of references back and forth between his films. So Evansville, a military plane crashes, and a biological weapon is released. The military comes in to quarantine, isolate, and take care of the problem before it becomes too widespread. The biological weapon is called Trixie, codenamed Trixie, and that's the basics of the film. Now, with both the original and the remake, it's the same plot line, except I think they set it in the Midwest.
It's all very flat.
Yeah.
There's no woods. There's no rolling hills like they do in Pennsylvania. It's just flat cornfields and freeways.
Like in Iowa, I think they do it. So the original film, I like the original film, but again, it suffers from, but you got to go in knowing it suffers from the low budget, production values, low, because the biological suits are basically just surplus gas masks and painters' jumpsuits, like the white painter jumpsuits. That's their biological, that's their NBC gear in the movie,
Yeah.
But also, it makes good. It makes good when they get shot because white shows blood real good.
It's good for the squibs. Yeah, all the weapons are just M1 carbines, which a little late for the 70s. That's what you might see.
Well, it was 1973, so.
Yeah, but we're up to our ass in M16s by 1973. That's the kind of thing you might see in the 60s on your National Guard guys. But he had some nice military-looking rifles. They look good. They fired their blanks just fine without a big bulky adapter. They had maybe like 2 Jeeps and maybe 1 truck to drive around in to do all the Jeeps and all the trucks. And so they're clearly suffering from having $275,000.
Absolutely.
But they still do a lot of things that were really interesting and looked really cool on the film. I love the fact that they show them putting up ultraviolet lights in and around the doorways of their command post, like that, because ultraviolet doesn't do bacteria any favors. I love the idea of they're giving everybody inoculations, the soldiers, not because it works, but because they want them to not be afraid of Trixie, so they'll do their job.
Exactly.
And it does a great job of showing. I mean, the whole point of that film is mostly to show how bad people are in a crisis.
Oh yeah, and how unprepared the government and military is planned for crisis. Because in the original, just folks, spoiler alerts. So in the original film, they're actually on site in Evansville like a week into the movie. Like they're like the plane crashed, and they're telling them all kinds of stories. Like the guy's like is not even prepared to because they got to quarantine, they got to make things work.
Yeah, they're telling everybody, oh no, we've totally cleaned it up, it's fine, everything's cool, and they even think it's cool. They're even convinced it's almost over.
Yeah, because they don't know it. They didn't tell them everything. But the thing is, people knew what was going on. The mayor knew as much as they knew what was going on, but they were told. But they knew there was a problem. The mayor knew. The sheriff knew. Some people knew what was going on. Whereas in the new film, nobody knew what was going on. It was like something fucked up, and they just fucking came in. So there was a different pacing between the two movies, because I think the pacing was definitely slower in the original 1973 film. There was definitely some unnecessary scenes of, oh look, we're driving somewhere, and oh look, there's some 70s music, and just I think unnecessary filler space in it, which they could have done. If they could have chopped some of that down a little bit more, it would have made it a little cleaner, a little tighter, But they knew they were there ahead of time. They knew what was going on, but things started escalating as more people saw what was going on, and it got worse and worse because they thought it was airborne, but they didn't realize that it went into the water. And they're like, oh, sunlight kills. Like, it's in the aquifers, dude. It's contaminating the water. It got everywhere. People started getting sick, and they were bringing other people in. They were bringing in more soldiers. It was right at the point where things were starting to get squirrely. Because they've been there.
It's a J curve of fucked up. As it goes along, it's accelerating how bad it gets, and they barely get in there in time to get into when it's completely out of control. The army arrives just in the nick of time, and even then, it ain't much of the nick of time.
No, because so many people are have lost it. Because the symptoms are, actually I think it takes a little longer to incubate in the 70s one. It takes days for it to happen, and what happens is because our favorite doctor from Dawn of the Dead was in this. Richard.
Yes, that's right.
Richard Franks.
Well, there's two. I mean, there's
and Dr. Logan's in it too.
Dr. Logan is in it playing. It's Richard Franks as Dr. Watts.
Yeah. And
I'm trying to remember who plays. Is it Kathy's dad?
Yes.
The guy who starts weirdly rubbing on his daughter, and I can't.
Oh, he does more than that, and they show it like the end result of that, which is really like, wow, that's what is
that was pretty horrible.
What is this, Behind the Green Door or something?
Yeah, Romero definitely is pushing the limits in 1973, where the crazy, disease-infected father starts trying to molest his daughter. I shouldn't say trying to. I think it's not an attempted rape. I think it's an actual rape that happens, and it's horrible.
Yeah. That aside.
That aside, that horrible, and that was one of the things about the Crazies in the 1971 is not all of them are violent, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
They don't all go murderous. There's that one thing where there's a battle happening and there's a woman with a broom who's sweeping.
Yes, that is the best part of the movie. Like, all the crazy guys got their guns, they're coming at the soldiers, and there's just one woman with a broom sweeping the grass.
Yeah, and so it's unpredictable what'll happen with the disease. Whereas in our 2010 version, it goes straight to murderous.
Well, yeah, well, because as they explained in the 2010 version, that it was a virus, it was a viral weapon designed to destabilize the population by making them batshit crazy and attacking and destroying them internally.
Yeah. Although they still have groups of people in the 2010 one who are cooperating in their craziness.
Yeah.
When they're at that truck stop, there's actually a group of crazies who are working together, and they're extra. It's extra nasty because, again, unlike your zombie apocalypse or your crazies from 28 and 28 weeks later, they're tool users. They still know how, even though they're crazy, they still know how to pick up their shotgun. They still know how to light their dynamite because they're throwing dynamite at the soldiers.
Dynamite. Well, they just become unstable, not totally useless. But now, mind you, when they started gathering them at because they're gathering them all at the high school to try to control the population, it gets kind of hilarious because they're just kind of all like, ah! It's like, okay, just act. They're all just like kind of running around their hands.
Well, it's the whole town. I mean, everybody is just, whether it's the soldiers under the gear, under the face masks, or the crazies. It's almost the whole population of the town, just being in the movie. So if their crazy acting chops are not up to speed, it's because they used 10 hours earlier. They were running the drive-through at the.
Oh yeah. Point. Oh, it's just hilarious, because again, you can. The movie's more about the concept as opposed to the actual execution at times. It's just funny. It's just funny seeing the people just like laughing, having a good time, But which I guess kind of works,
But there are some really powerful scenes in it. The images of the guys in the gas masks, standing on every corner where your town is under occupation, and one of the things that always got me was when they're disposing of the dead.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's going through their pockets for money and watches, because nobody gets that this is it. This is the end. Everyone thinks they're going to go home after this. And oh look, I got a bunch of Rolexes. So they're going through people's pockets for valuables, and there's that one thing where one of the soldiers freaks out and they put the flamethrower on him.
Oh yeah, they have flamethrowers, which again makes for a great movie, having a flamethrower.
And that's always a good start. That scene where the guy gets, the one soldier gets set on fire, and the officer is trying to put him down, but because he's wearing the gas mask, he can't see real well, so he tears off his gas mask so he can finally put the guy down with the burning man alive, down with a single shot. And that was another thing I liked, was the fact that the soldiers weren't real good at shooting our heroes because they can't see shit out of those stupid gas masks.
Yep.
They
weren't modern gas masks. They were like just really bad, just kind of like civilian. They're really just more like civilian gas masks,
Yeah, they look like something from the 50s, maybe earlier. But because of that, they steam up. You can't see shit. Now you're supposed to have a firefight in the woods when all you poor bastards are wearing white. Yeah. I was willing to accept that the protagonists were better combatants than the soldiers because they had all these limitations.
Well, but our two main characters were one was an ex-Green Beret, and one was he was just regular army, but he was a foot soldier. He was a good, apparently was a good shot soldier.
Yeah, so everybody were plus they were combat veterans.
Yeah.
So and a lot of movies don't bother. What can I say? A lot of movies don't bother to give me a reason why the protagonists have an advantage or why they're winning. Just all of a sudden the stormtroopers in Star Wars can't hit the broadside of a barn. Speaking of guys dressed in white who can't shoot.
It can't see.
Yeah. So I like that the film sort of set that up and gave that to me. And it did a good job. I thought it did a good job of being kind of, of this sort of weird tragedy as they're trying to get out. We got to get out before we're infected, and it's too late. You're infected. And there's actually a point where in the film I'm starting to wonder if I should be rooting for the protagonists to get out of the quarantine, because if they do, the rest of us are fucked.
Yep, they're going to spread it. Because one by one, they start dropping off because they're getting it.
Yeah, not because the soldiers are killing them, although that happens, but they're dropping off because they're losing their minds. they've got Trixie. And so you start to wonder, if maybe your loyalty shouldn't be with the men from GLAAD as opposed to, our protagonists.
Well, except for the one who is apparently immune. So.
Okay, there's one guy, and that is a great ending, where they go, "Do you want to test him to see if he's immune?" "Nah, we're not going to find anyone who's immune." And then,
well, because again, it's shown the incompetence and and the uselessness of what they're trying to do, because they're like, because they're like, well, we'll figure it out. We don't know what so and so is working on. We'll see if we can get to it. They're just showing their incompetence, why it's failing, why this is happening. Because if they would have tested them.
And that marvelous thing about they slow down communications because they have to encrypt everything and descramble it. And then, do you have the code? Well, that's not the right code. You do, and so all the security on top of this prevents them from communicating and coordinating fast enough. And the film is cool in the way that it sort of does this. And here's how we're going to blow it. Here's how bureaucracy and our ability to react blow it. And even our individualist efforts of our protagonists are going to blow it.
Yeah.
Because their success is to spread the disease. That's what we get if our heroes get out of quarantine.
Yeah, because they did it. What was it called? It was like voice recording recognition. So anytime they had to talk to somebody, they had to record it, send it somewhere else, verify it, then communicate, and that's what caused the whole problem. Because the good doctor, discovered something. He couldn't wait the extra 10 minutes, for the communication. Runs out with vicariously just carrying in his hand a couple of vials, and they see him come around the corner and like, get over there. He's like, no, I'm the doctor. I can, and he's, they're like, get the fuck over there, and it's done.
Yeah, and if you think that can't happen, just ask that black woman who got locked up in Bellevue for 8 days for driving a BMW. Remember that? That's been in the news recently. So, yeah, the authorities don't react well when trying to parse out who's crazy and who's not. They're clearly not good at it, even when it's not a crisis.
Yeah, and then especially because the other doctor's like, hey, what did you find? What am I looking for? No, I gotta go talk to the guy. Doesn't give her any information. So then when he falls headfirst down the stairs and cracks the skull open and drops the vials, they're lost. Right there. Yeah. It's over.
But the film does a good job of demonstrating one of Romero's early, themes, which was we're not good in a crisis.
No,
and and I think the film does a really good job with that. That moment where it's turning up someplace else, and they're telling the colonel at the end, "Yeah, listen, we'd like to move you to this new outbreak area because you've got the experience now, and so we'll be removing you from the sterilization zone because they're gonna fucking nuke it from orbit just to be sure, which it's too late. You're nuking it and it's already out. Congratulations. That's not going to help.
Yeah, and it's Louisville. It's a big city. Yeah, we see some outbreaks. Okay, it's done. That's why I said it starts off as a micro-apocalypse, but it's slowly spreading because it's also viral, and it's over. It's just the chain reaction because they're so worried about it getting out, and they fail miserably. Because it's funny seeing the guys in the office in Washington talking about their options. They're like, no, we got to keep a security blackout. No, the news can't know. Hey, listen, we need to get a bomber in the air and talk about our options about just nuking the whole town. We can't nuke the town. Listen, this can't get out. We have to stop this now. But we can't do that. Listen, we need to talk to the president. We need to tell him the options. And they're even, the one guy who's like eating his sandwich, he's like, listen, we got to get the story on the news that there's radiation there because if we have to nuke the city, we want them to know that, hey, we're working with radiation here and there's a bomb there. They're trying to set it up, but of course, it's too late. They should have probably just nuked it in the first place.
Yeah, well, it's that thing where we'll do the thing the thing we don't want to do that we'll fix it. We'll do it later because it's too painful or there'll be political fallout. Well, we can't keep it secret if we nuke it. Yeah, and now it's in another town. So You're still, and then they're still going to nuke it, even though it just doesn't matter at this point, because toothpaste out of tube, genie out of bottle.
Well, and as one of the characters say, they're like, listen, this has been going on for a week. It's in the water supply. Who's to say that some trucker hasn't come through, drank it, and now God knows where he is now?
Yeah. So it's a marvel example of that sort of the horror is almost not Trixie. The horror is watching the emergency response.
Yeah.
And seeing it fail and fail and fail and fail, despite best intentions and best efforts, it's just not going well.
Yeah, and we see this in real life, like with Katrina, how emergency services and responses fail
all the time.
It happens. It's real, and he was saying this back in 1973.
Yeah. With the added benefit of the sort of cynicism that's wandering around about Watergate, although Watergate's a little bit later than, I guess, 73. It may have happened in 72, but I don't think it really gets rolling until 74. So, but, the line I always remember is from, of all things, the shitty Stephen King novel Tommyknockers, where they find the alien spaceship stuck in the ground in earth and stone that's so old that it's like, obviously crashed before humans were in North America, right? And they say, well, we should talk to the authorities. And the one character, his idea of the authorities, it is in his head, is the Dallas police. Because he's a kid of the 60s, and when he thinks of the authorities can handle it, he thinks of the way the Dallas police, first of all, failed to protect the Kennedy motorcade to start with. And then, having caught the assassin, managed to walk him in front of live cameras right past the guy who's going to shoot him. And for him, it wasn't a matter of conspiracy or intention, but it was that level of incompetence.
Oh, that was obvious to the world. It wasn't like conspiracy.
Yeah, it was that level of incompetence. So for him, the authorities are, oh, good, the Dallas police are on the scene, And that's what I think of when I watch the Crazies. Is, oh, good, the Dallas police are here. Everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna take care of this problem. No worries.
Well, because it also seems like a lot of the people that they didn't say if they were specifically regular Army or National Guard, but the soldiers were just incompetent. They just seemed like, which leads me to believe that they were just kind of like, maybe they were just like, part-time soldiers, because
I think they kind of brought up the idea that these guys don't know why they're there. They're just the nearest National Guard unit that was brought in. They're not Army Chemical Corps. They're not specialists from the Trixie thing. So they're just brought in. The first guys available, which means you got your quick response, but your first responders don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and to get in all through the movie, to get the real stuff, like, yeah, that's still 3 days out until we can get all this stuff here. What? It's like, you guys didn't plan for this. Again, you're trying to show that level of unpreparedness for this scenario.
And frankly, the scenario is what? I mean, you have the fire the first night where the guy burns down his family. Then you have that whole day and the night, and then the next morning. I think the movie only takes place over like 36 to 48 hours tops.
Yeah, just a couple days. That's it.
I think there's maybe 2 nights in that film. There's the night when it starts, and the next morning after the final protagonist has been captured by the Army.
Yep.
Yeah. So moving on to the 2010, much slicker version of the Crazies.
Well, yeah, because it has a bigger budget. I think it had. Let's see here. It was. Oh, they had $20 million.
Ooh, that's a lot of extra zeros compared to $270,000.
And it did $54 million in the box office, and it was well received. Now it is a lot slicker. Same concept. A plane goes down, but actually, I don't think they. In this movie, they didn't know a plane had crashed. They had seen some planes flying over, didn't know it crashed until Well, they start seeing some people acting.
Some
people acting weird, and they're in the swamp because some of these hunters find a body of like a pilot, and they're like, "Where the fuck did this come from?" So they're looking through the swamp, and eventually they come upon, "Oh, wait a minute, what's that under the water?" There's like a freaking giant transport plane under the swamp, and that shit's just leaking out to the water supplies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how. And so the thing is that the impression I got from that one is that the plane crashed maybe a day before, and
it was like, well, it was like 2 or 3 days because they said the incubation period was 48 hours for it to start, and the movie basically starts with them at the baseball game, and the guy walks out onto the field with a gun, the one guy. So he's got it. So it's been at least 2 days.
And at that point, you know, the government's response is completely sub rosa in this movie. I mean, they don't show their presence until they've, you know, they're like way out 10 miles away from building a quarantine, you know, barricade out there. They're putting up troops outside the town and getting things into position that the people in town don't even know about. The first time something starts to look like it could be a problem is number one,
the boots.
Like just having phones and internet. Was it phones and internet first, or was it the boots? Because the boots was scary.
Yeah. They just wake up the next morning like all the cars were booted. All of them. Yeah. Like they came in through the night and booted them.
Yeah, that was actually creepy to me. In a small town, everyone's going to be in bed between 10 and 6 or 10 and 5, and there's going to be a window. And the idea that they just got in there and put boots on all the cars. And there's that one thing where the guy comes out and he just sees that SUV driving away as fast as it can.
Yeah.
You know, from the town. It's like, wonder what? And then just looking up and down the street to all those orange metal. That was scary to me. I guess they don't want us to leave.
Yeah, well, the difference in this movie is like things move a lot quicker. It's not as slow. It's not a slow pace because again, it's not like not saying anything bad about, you know, the Romero film, that yes, it was slower, the acting wasn't as good, because again, a lot of them were locals, but it is what it is because it's an indie film. It was more of a conceptually an excellent film as opposed to maybe visually. This one definitely has a visual slickness. It moves a lot quicker. They aren't coming in there, you know, oh, we have this thing here, this is going on, it should be fine. No, they're sitting out there, okay, our plane crashed, let's see what happens. Okay, shit's happening, let's move in. They were setting up and ready to pounce, and they did.
Yeah.
They booted the cars, and all this time, the sheriff's like, well, why are there boots on the car, and why are these people acting weird, and oh, there's this plane that crashed, and what's on here? And he's the one who figures out it's in the water supply. And he tells the mayor, and the mayor's like, you're freaking crazy, there's no problem. And he shuts the water supply off himself for the aquifer, but it's too late. People have been drinking the shit for 2 days, you know. But he's okay. But he's okay, and some other people are okay because they drink from their own wells.
Yeah. Oliphant does a fine job. He's great in it. I had no complaints with his performance at all.
Yeah, no, and the shit goes down real fast. There are a lot more. Now this is the military that you would expect. You know, they are organized. They are efficient. I mean, some shit still does happen, and they do kind of bug out.
But it's the difference between our perception of the military that won the Gulf War, the first one, you know, in 2 days wiped out Saddam Hussein, and the military that couldn't win Vietnam.
Yes.
Right? The 73 movie shows you the military that we think they can't get their act together, they can't do their job. And the other one shows us a military that on one level is excruciatingly efficient. Much to our detriment, as a matter of fact, as our heroes are trying to escape, you know.
Yeah, but it's still as matters as well prepared as they're at. There's the one scene again. Spoiler alerts, people. You know, there's a bunch of yokels that come in like a fire truck or a pickup truck, smash the gate where they're holding everybody and start shooting, and then some shoulders drop and the people freak out and overwhelm them. And they're like, okay, we're out of here. They just bug out. They get in the choppers and they fucking leave, and they just pull back to the quarantine line, and they're like, yeah, we're just going to nuke the fucking town. Forget it. It's over. We can't save it.
Yeah. One of my favorite bits was the thing where they're chased by the chopper.
Oh yeah, that was a good scene.
And they go through the, I don't know if was it a dry, it's either, is it
Car
a
wash.
car wash? They go to the car, jump out of the car, and let the car just drive out, and it just takes a hellfire. And I'm just like, poof! Okay, now, that's charming, but unless there's a nice heat source in that building, I get a terrible feeling the chopper might have been able to pick those poor bastards up on the thermals. Because if you want to see some snuff movie, you should go to YouTube and watch all that gun camera footage of guys getting plastered in Afghanistan, and it's kind of intimidating what our technology and what our hardware can do to some poor bastards. When they're caught in the cross sides of an Apache with its thermal sights.
Well, but I will say they were in the car wash, so either the water was extremely hot and it looks like one big heat source, or it was really cold and it brought their temperature down.
I'll buy that.
That's the excuse I'm giving them for that, and it may be plausible.
Yeah,
I think
it might work, it might not. Now, certainly, you don't see guys do not glow like they do on those night vision scopes when they're inside a building or when they're in a car. But
so if you have all that water and it brings everybody's temperature the same, or at least on the surface, maybe we could have got away.
But
I'll give him a pass on that.
That's my plausible. That's my suspension of disbelief. Thank you for providing an excuse for me to have them. You know what I mean? Because I hate it when they don't even bother. They go, it's just time for the plot for this to happen, and they just don't give me anything to, hang my hat on.
They don't explain that, but they set it up to where if you thought about, like I just thought about it for a second, it's like, okay, well, heat signature, they're in the water, okay, they set it up being there. But this movie is a lot faster paced, and the shit starts going down real quick,
Yeah. And I like that they bring in one of my favorite character actors. Let's see, Glenn Morshower, okay, to play the FBI agent or the spook or whoever who they get their hands on for a little while. The guy who was booting the cars.
Oh, not even a little while. It is like 10 seconds.
Yeah, but I like that guy. He always gets tapped to play authority figures. He's played a fucking Secret Service agent like 9 times in his career.
They stop him with the tools that they stopped other people with, and he's like, "Listen, we're trying to help. We're doing this, we're doing that," and something happens to him. So
and frankly, from his perspective, he's the hero of the movie. These people are fucking it up. They are fucking it up. And that's and they certainly don't lose that. I don't feel that they lost that in this version either. Although there was something where the military was not as big into gunning down civilians as they were in the first one, but what they do is they like you said, they constantly pull back and reestablish. They keep pulling back until eventually they just nuke the place.
Well, they weren't all about killing civilians. Yeah, that's on the surface you don't see that, but there are.
Oh yeah. Right.
Well, later in the film, out of the gate, they're not. They're like trying to quarantine them, kind of get them separated because they're probably going to do the same damn thing anyway. So,
but you're right. I'd forgotten that eventually you find out that half the people went to the left and the other half went to the right, and things didn't work out.
They all wound up in the same place together. Yeah. Shallow grave. But
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah. And but it's that overall it's good. You still have basically, well, you had 5 characters in the 73. This one only had. Well, I'm sorry. It started off with 5. They got up to 5, but then they lost 2 pretty quick, and it was down to 3, which was basically 2 guys and a girl. Same setup. You got the one guy who was kind of like the in charge guy. He was the sheriff and the deputy. So again, gives them an excuse of, okay, why can they shoot? How do they know how to use guns? Well, they're the fucking sheriff and the deputy.
And I gotta tell you, I kind of love the fact that in the 73 one, it was 2 firefighters.
Yeah, volunteer firefighters.
Yeah, as opposed to because they weren't law enforcement. Law enforcement gets gunned down in the 73 one by the Army. But I like that these guys were. They were people who came from a background of being able to handle danger and deal with a crisis, but they weren't necessarily law enforcement.
Yeah, but it was okay that they were law enforcement, and had the wife. The wife was pregnant. You had a lot of. They kept a lot of similar themes to it.
Yeah.
And again, at the end, they are together, and you had a similar thing with the secondary guy making a sacrifice. Just like in
Yep.
the '73 movie. So they kept a lot of similarities to the film, but again, a lot faster pace. More when, even though I think the movies are about the same length. Pacing was different. I think they did things a little bit different, but I didn't get bored in the movie. I think I was entertained the whole time.
I just realized there's a helicopter attack in both movies.
Yes, you're right.
One's a little more high budget, but there's a helicopter attack in both movies. So
yep, there was.
They kept you're right. They really do keep a lot of the forms, a lot of the beats of the film are the same. Even though, again, yeah, you're right. Pacing's way off.
Yeah, pretty different, and it.
And something else. The 73 one keeps jumping back to Washington, and it also keeps showing where the soldiers are, what they're doing in town. The 2010 one is an ant's eye view. You only see what the main characters see.
Yeah. Occasionally you get a little bird's eye view thing every once in a while, a little bit towards the end of because they're not really like in Washington, but they're in some kind of headquarters where they have surveillance, and they're you see a little bit of that towards the end, and you really don't see a lot of you see the soldiers initially, then you see them a little bit towards when they have a quarantine line, like they block the roads off quite a bit, but that's all you really see of them. And of course they have the same plan. Well, you got to nuke the town. It's it's gone ape shit. We can't do anything about it. And that scene was a little
Was it a bit nuke the fridge for you?
Yeah, that scene was a little bit. It's like they weren't quite far enough away. I don't care if they were in a semi truck. No, but
I agree.
But the same thing happens. They get out. Well, actually, no. These ones get out, start heading towards another city, and you see the bird's eye view, and same thing happens. Like oh, we got to send you to this other town because we're having some outbreaks there. Same thing. If you watch the credits, you got the same thing going on. So they kept on pace with each other. It was different enough to where it wasn't cookie cutter. It wasn't like a Night of the Living Dead remake, which was pretty much almost scene per scene. But the concepts are there. They kept a lot of, like you said, a lot of the structure was the same. But again, I think a lot of modern audiences would have trouble, especially maybe some of our younger audience would have trouble watching the '73 Romero film. Even though it's a good film, somebody who's grown up with modern films probably would have trouble with it.
Not to mention the complaint is like, well, I've already seen this before because I saw the 2010 or I saw any number of films that have used similar tropes. Yeah. But George was there first. That's the thing.
Yes.
He got there first with this concept, and everybody else is hitching on to. They're behind him in the parade. Yeah. And that's why it's always worth seeing, is to see the first time trying these ideas out.
Correct. It's on YouTube. You can just watch it on YouTube. So you don't have to spend any money. It's on there, full film, good quality. That's where I watched it because I didn't have it. So it's again, it's worth seeing just to see the original, and you'll see some of those characters, some of those actors in that film again appear in Dawn of the Dead, appear in Day of the Dead. He repeats some of his actors there. But then the 2010 one is definitely a good film as well, worth seeing as well. Same concept. So those are those films. Now we're going to tag on just a little bit at the end here because since we were talking about the Crazies, again, it was viral, it was a micro, which spread, but like I said, it really covers the third apocalypse that Scott brought up, was the behavioral apocalypse, and there's a few films out there that do have a behavioral apocalypse theme as well. So we'll talk about those quickly. What was that first one that you mentioned earlier?
Well, there's 3 books and 3 movies that I would throw out immediately. The first movie is a movie with Sam Waterston and fucking Kathleen Quinlan, Yaphet Kotto. The list on this, the cast is unbelievable. Jeffrey DeMunn, who was in Walking Dead. Richard Dysart, who got his arms bitten off by the Thing in The Thing. Rick Rossovich is in it. Let's see.
What is it?
Jerry Hardin from the X-Files. Warning sign. It's another. It's the agricultural research station in town that's working on agricultural products, but really is a bioweapon research facility that has a lockdown, right? And Yaphet Kotto shows up with the army to say nobody's going in. We're just going to let the plague burn itself out. And then all the rednecks decide we got to get our families out, and they decide to tear the doors down and let the bug out. And the bug is very much like Trixie.
Okay.
It's airborne rabies, and makes people become violent for a long time until they die. And the movie's Warning Sign. It's from 1985. It is absolutely worth a look. Jeffrey DeMunn and Sam Waterston play the guys who fight their way into the sealed building to rescue their loved ones who are trapped inside. There's a lot of, again, people with small roles like Rick Rossovich, who was in Top Gun, and he was in Terminator. I keep forgetting Rick Rossovich, the guy who gets thrown around by Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Apartment. He was also in that Steve Martin version of Sarah de Bergerac called Roxanne.
Okay.
Keith Zabarsha. There's a guy if anyone, Keith Zabarsha did voices for Fallout. He's a guy that you'll recognize from The Equalizer, from Angel. The cast is really good, and the special effects are pretty good with the disease where it's the pustules show up, the discoloration shows up under black light, and it's pretty good. It's worth a look. So there's Warning Sign.
Warning Sign, 1985, correct?
Yeah. Now, that one never gets out of the building, so it's not an apocalypse. But there's The Plague, which is a film from 2006 with, of all people, James Van Der Meek, where everybody on the planet falls into a coma for no really apparent reason. And then 10 years later, after taking care of everybody in a coma and changing their bedpans and giving them food, everyone wakes up and murders everybody who wasn't in a coma. So there's kind of this madness, this hive mind. It's not quite the same kind of madness as Warning Sign or the Crazies, but it's kind of a behavioral apocalypse. There's the 1976 film called, alternatively, Island of the Damned, or sometimes Who Can Kill a Child, where all the children on the island just start murdering their parents. And these two people come to visit the island, and they can't seem to find anybody, and then they're besieged by hordes of murderous children who are trying to kill them. That's kind of a behavioral apocalypse, I suppose. But the books I would throw out...
And The Signal, like you said.
You're right. The Signal's the best example, and I completely shot right past it. The Signal.
That's the one that was filmed by 3 directors.
Yes.
3 different perspectives, which a lot of people hated. Like, the pacing changes. It looks like 3 different movies because it was meant to be like that. It was meant to be 3 directors, different perspectives. Like, we get one perspective, one chapter of that movie is from the crazy person's point of view. Like how fucking crazy they are. I think it was a really good movie. I thought it was exceptional. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, you're right. The Signal is an excellent version of the crazy apocalypse, of the behavioral apocalypse. And I don't know what the budget on it was, but I'm betting it was quite low. I mean, it does not look like a big budget. Okay, budget is estimated at $50,000 in 2007. Right? They did a great job with their $50,000. They really did. No complaints about that. And so you're right. The Signal, I completely forgot. You're right. I mentioned that. I forgot about it. The 3 books I would throw out is Stephen King wrote something called The Cell, which is apparently his grumpy old man complaint about cell phones, where it's the Signal again, but it comes through everyone's cell phone.
I think they did a movie on that as well, or something like that.
There is a movie called The Cell, but it's terrible. It's some Jennifer Lopez film.
No. No, there's like one that's like, isn't it like a Japanese film? Like, oh, it's where like the ghosts are coming through the.
Oh yes, you're right. There is a Japanese film. It's not The Signal. Pulse.
Pulse. There you go. See, it's
Pulse
using
is the
cell
Japanese
phones
film.
and television waves, but again, that's a different kind of. That's a ghost. That's a supernatural apocalypse.
Yeah.
So.
The other ones I would throw out are this Among Madmen. Now, I found this back in the 80s, I want to say, and it's illustrated by Jim Starlin, who is a well-known comic book illustrator. Yeah, first printing 1990, so practically the 80s. Jim Starlin and Diana Grazunius, who I don't know from anything else. It's got a nice little blurb on the back from Stephen King, and it's a crazy apocalypse. It is a post-apocalyptic world where some sort of disease has come and made everybody insane and murderously crazy. So it's like the Crazies 10 years on after it's gotten out and transformed America. And it's filled with Jim Starlin illustrations. And Starlin, I believe, is the guy who illustrated Stephen King's The Dark Tower, or some of the interiors of The Dark Tower. And the last one I'm going to throw out is Crazy Apocalypse. Is a very recent book called Black Moon. Now, I haven't read Black Moon yet. It came out in, like, last year, like 2013. And it's written by a guy named Kenneth Calhoun. Yeah, 2014. Real recent.
Oh, yeah.
This one's sort of a behavioral apocalypse, but the kickoff is it's the sleep apocalypse. Nobody can sleep. Nobody can stay asleep. And the longer they're awake, the weirder and crazier they get.
Well, I think it's been proven with sleep deprivation that the longer you're awake, the more you just start losing your fucking mind. Like, I think they've actually proven it that if you don't get sleep for
you'll hallucinate.
You hallucinate, you start going crazy, and eventually it could kill you. Actually, my understanding.
Yeah, and the idea that no one can sleep is awesome because the guys who are working on a cure, they're not getting any sleep either. You know what I mean?
So how solid is their work?
Yeah, exactly. The creepiest thing, I haven't read it yet, but the creepiest thing I ran across was in a review. Somebody's talking about how it's written from points of view of people who can't get sleep and people who can get sleep, the different sides of the problem. And there's this one part where, like, somebody posts a video on YouTube of a baby sleeping. And at first, the comments are like, oh, wow, I wish I could sleep. You know, oh, I'm so jealous, you know. And then the later comments from people who've been up for longer is, fucker, fucking kill it, fucking kill that fucking thing. How, you know, it's just all hate and anger because rage at the baby because it can sleep. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's the sand running through the hourglass, kids. We are running out of time. So, Black Moon, I bought it. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but it sounded like a good concept for a behavioral apocalypse where everyone goes nutso. And we self-destruct.
Cool. So yeah, so there's definitely quite a bit of stuff out there for the behavioral apocalypses. So, all right, folks, so that's going to be our show for this week. We actually, we're only running like an hour and 10 minutes. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with us, but because we didn't try to take on too much stuff at one time. That's why we're able to get done in a reasonable period of time.
Yeah.
But. So the Crazies, if you give, just to see the hold on, just to see the original 1973, the Crazies, as well as seeing the 2010 version, totally worth your time. Scott mentioned a bunch of behavioral apocalypses as well. Now, next show, which will be in our normal schedule 2 weeks, we're going to talk about I haven't decided, we're going to call it the dry apocalypse, the heat apocalypse, something like that. We're basically going to talk about what things are going to be like when things get a little hot and we're running out of water, like in Solar Babies.
Yeah, let's do Thirstmageddon. Can we get Thirstmageddon?
It sounds like an Irish guy you're running to in a bar. I'm Thirstmageddon, but
I was going to say that it's a new drink product. The Thirstmageddon.
Or Scottish, it's glug. But
so we'll be doing what happens when we get a little desertification. Yeah.
So there's some things I need to still watch. Scott has watched. We came across some other. I mean, we have to do a little digging to try to find some more Heat Apocalypse stuff.
We're not talking about solar babies. We're just not. Okay.
Oh, yeah, well, we're going to talk about it, but we're not going to talk about it. It's just, we'll poke fun at it, but we're not going to oh yeah, that's solar babies. That's a hot apocalypse. Anyway, let's talk about so we're going to talk about the hot apocalypse and next time. And you said you had a couple of other ideas to pitch for some future shows.
Yes. I have a friend of mine who'd like to pitch an idea about. Well, first of all, I'd like to bring Frank Fry back and give him some more, a better interview, a more organized interview with the old Frank on Twilight 2K, because
we talked about that. We definitely need to do that.
And I have a friend of mine named Jim Kitchen who wants to sell us on the idea that the guidebook, the Game of the Year guidebook that was made for Fallout 3 is actually the greatest post-apocalyptic pen and paper role-playing game never published. That book is organized in such a way that it is actually like a rule book for a pen and paper role-playing game. And if you wanted to just take that guidebook, you could run a Fallout role-playing game just with that stuff. And I would, of course, love to revisit Fallout anytime, because I often do in my real life. But I'm interested to see this sales pitch. So we'll have him pitch us directly, and then we'll see if we want to unleash this madman's theory on the public.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we could turn a whole show into that, but maybe. But maybe if we do a Fallout Redux and bring it up again, maybe we'll loop that into as part of the discussion.
Nobody's gonna get tired of Fallout. Nobody's gonna get tired of it.
Nobody. But we definitely want to do a Twilight 2000 Redux too, because there's a lot to talk about. And again, it was earlier on when we weren't as professional as we are now.
Because we've gotten so much better.
Actually, you know what? I think we do a lot better job than we did out of the gate. So we'll reapproach that. So those are some ideas. And then also after the hot apocalypse, I want to hit on language, because we talked about communications and ways of conveyance the other show. We want to talk about language, actual language in the apocalypse as well, because shit, man, language varies not in the apocalypse right now. So we want to definitely see where that could go. So, and of course we'll come up with some other ideas as we go along, but at least we got a couple more shows laid out, so we could keep you entertained for at least another month.
If we're gonna do language apocalypse, we're probably I am gonna insist we touch on a terrible '80s film called America 3000, which has one of the most amazing scripts, because it does that thing where it comes up with new words for everything after the apocalypse.
Oh yeah.
And it's awful, because not only do they have the language, they then proceed to tell you everything that it means. Like they have a narrator who goes, that means nuke means death, or to nuke someone means to kill them, now in the future. And it's just like, wow, you didn't think we could figure that out from the way it was used? Okay.
And by explaining it, you defeat the whole purpose of using it.
Yeah, you just sucked all the cool out of the thing you were trying to do. Good, congratulations. America 3000 is definitely worth a look, and I can send you some links to it online. It's awful. It's awful. It's one of the most awful. It really is.
Cool. All right, so that's it. Again, folks, we'll see you in 2 weeks for the Thirst Apocalypse. And we'll go drinking with him, but
Hydrogeddon. No, Hydrogeddon would be Waterworld, where there's too much water.
Yeah, let's not talk about. Let's never talk about Waterworld. But
yeah. Oops.
Yeah, there was two good things about Waterworld, and I think we've already mentioned it, and we don't think we ever need to mention it again. But so we're going to talk about the Heat Apocalypse 2 weeks, folks, so we'll see you then. So this is, for Podcast at Ground Zero, Jared the Apocalypse, and Nerd Wallace, and Anna Bob Glancy saying thank you and good night.
Coming at you coast to coast. That's right.
What are we, Space Coast to coast?
Well, no, I mean, you're in Lauderdale, I'm in Seattle. That's fucking coast to coast, bitches.
That's right. That's how we roll, bitches. All right, folks, thank you, and we'll see you in the wasteland.